In this episode of the Joy in Purpose podcast, I'll explore why slowing down is essential and how it can transform the way we show up in the world. I'll also share a personal story about how I learned this valuable lesson. First, let me officially welcome you to the podcast again. I'm Lola, a doctor of psychology with a postdoctoral training in neuropsychology. Joy in Purpose is a platform for meaningful conversation about purpose, career development, and mental health. Just a quick reminder, this podcast is not a substitute for therapy. It's for educational purposes only. Thank you for joining me, and let's dive in. So, let me start with the personal story. There was a particular event that was about to take place, and I volunteered to make puff puff. So it's a Nigerian dessert, basically fried dough. It's sweet. So as you can imagine, this involves flour, and I was making this dessert for the event. And as I looked at the time, I realized, wow, I am going to be late, and I wanted to arrive early to also help out with the preparing the venue. So I already picked out my outfit. So I just went ahead when I was done, wore my outfit and left with the snack that I was taking with me. So I was at the event. I arrived early enough that I still helped with setting up. The event took place. I was very much involved, greeting guests, taking pictures, like just being at an event with friends and family. And it was busy, very, very, very funny. And then something happened. Someone that I barely knew came to me towards the end of the party and said, "What's that stuck on your arms?" Both, not one, but both. It was, if you're someone that bakes or fry, you can understand how sometimes when you're making something like puff puff, flour can easily get stuck on you. And even when you wash your hands, unless you see it and able to scrub it, you won't, it would just stick on you. So this stranger that I barely knew saw me. I was like, wow, what's that? And I looked down and it was flour stuck on my arms. So I thanked her. I went to the bathroom, and it took me some time to get it off, but I was able to get it off. And now I'm going to share with you the valuable lesson that I learned from it. As a matter of fact, before I share the valuable lesson, let me go ahead and share about the story of Esther. If you're a Christian, you're probably familiar with it. I just want to focus on this part of her story. Esther found out that her people, the Jewish people, were about to be killed, and because of hatred. And what did Esther do? Esther told her father, we can say her adopted father or uncle, that they should fast for 3 days. So the Jewish people were fasting. Esther was fasting. And Esther's maid servants, her servants were also fasting. It was a spiritual preparation because she wanted to go and approach the king, which she's not supposed to. It could basically say that she should die in that moment because she wasn't called upon, so she wasn't supposed to go in front of the king. And there's something about this passage that really strikes me every time I read the book of Esther, was that Esther had also been fasting, right? And on the third day, she went to visit the king, but it tells us that she wore a royal robe. So Esther just engaged in a spiritual activity. She could have gone in front of the king with her face crying, wearing sackcloth, fasting, but she wore royal robes before she approached the king. And as you know the story of Esther, she found favor with the king, and the people of Israel, they were saved. So what did this story of Esther demonstrate to us? That there's a balance between being spiritually prepared and practical readiness. And I would also argue that even practical readiness is not different from being spiritually ready, because I cannot imagine someone who has a relationship with God and God doesn't talk to you about your relationship with other people or to be prepared for your job or to do your best at work. We might call it being practical, but it's very much spiritual as well. But you get my point. Esther was fasting, and then she took her time to wear the robe. Our people were about to perish. What is the purpose of putting on royal robe, in that time? But there was something about that I just found fascinating. So, about the story that I shared earlier, my flower moment, right? When the stranger came up to me and told me that, wow, look at what's on your arms. And I'm glad that she told me. I'm very grateful. But it just told me that there was nothing wrong with me preparing a snacks for the event. But if I had taken 5 extra minutes just to slow down and not rush and looked in the mirror a bit longer, I would have noticed it, and I would have taken care of that. And so there's nothing wrong with the fact that a stranger told me. That's not what I'm saying, but it helped me realize that as we're focusing on life and giving, there's nothing wrong with slowing down and also paying attention to ourselves, just to make sure that we're also putting our best foot forward. This event, and along with others, have taught me the importance of just paying my attention to the way that I look. Because it will also, I'm not saying that maybe other people didn't notice and they didn't treat me any differently, but when we pay attention to the way that we look, it can really help us to exude the confidence that we already have within ourselves. And it can help us to appreciate the way that we look and how put together we are. So it really taught me to slow down, like I said earlier, and to take time to be intentional about the person that I present to the world on a daily basis. And I know as women, when we have a lot going on, you have, you're trying to do so much in a short amount of time. It can be challenging and difficult, but that extra 5 minutes or 30 minutes that you spend when you wake up, it's important because you never know what you're going to run into, and you want to be confident. You don't want to hide and say, oh, I don't want that person to see me. It just helps you. You never know who you're going to come in contact with. So I would just like to share some more things that relates to slowing down. One is prioritizing looking good and slowing down, whatever that looks like for you. Some of these things I already mentioned earlier, but I'm just going to share them in like bullet points. So why is it important to prioritize and to slow down? Because it's important, right? God looks at the heart, but man looks at the outward appearance. And it doesn't mean that you are being carnal or anything like that. Again, the story of Esther, you can say that, oh, maybe she was supposed to wear the royal robe to begin with. I don't think so. She could have said, I'm sad, things are going on, I'm stressed out. But she wore the royal robe. It just shows her being intentional, and again, her being practical. And when the king saw her, it favored her. So for some of us, taking time to prioritize your look might mean spending 5 minutes, might mean spending 30 minutes. But it's just important to invest time in prioritizing yourself. What has really helped me to look good and pay my attention to that is to know my body shape, my style, and what works for me. So what works for someone that is more curvy or more slim is going to be different. And I also have an idea of my style. It's very simple but very elegant. I know the colors that look good on me, that looks good on my skin tone. So I tend to gravitate towards that when I shop. And it makes it easier to get dressed because the colors that I have in my closet complement each other. I also follow style, people that inspire me, people that we have similar body types, that I like the way that they dress. So it's easy for me to get ideas. Sometimes what they wear are things that I already have in my closet. So, and sometimes just seeing those inspiration on Instagram, on Pinterest, I might not copy that look, but it's just nice for me to see those kind of style inspiration on my feed, because it's feeding that inspiration about dressing well and looking good. So it helps me to better make it a priority. And lastly, focus on health. So focus on health, working out, eating healthy. This is an area that all of us can, I'm very sure most of us can be better at, because when you work out, when you eat right, it comes with a natural glow. It comes with its own natural glow. It gives you a sense of, you have this boost of energy, this sense of confidence, because you know that you're putting work into your overall health. And after some times, it typically shows, it will show, and it just has a way of helping us with our confidence. So that's my podcast for today. I want to keep this short like I usually do. So I hope you take one or two things from my flower moment of just slowing down. I feel like I'm repeating myself, but more than style and all that, it's about slowing down and being intentional about the look that we put out there. And I just think that, like I said, you never know what you're going to run into. And more than that, it helps you with your own self-confidence. And it doesn't matter who you engage with throughout the day. That first impression, you've already taken care of it. And I think that's powerful as women and as Christians. So that's my episode for this week. Thank you very much for listening. And I'll say it again. Thank you so much for listening. I do not take it for granted. If you found this episode helpful, please share with friends and family who might benefit too. Remember that you are valuable and there's purpose within you. Don't forget to rate and review the Joy in Purpose podcast on your favorite platform. It really helps us grow. I'm wishing you a wonderful day and peace.